Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to season number 10 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. Tonight we are up here in Lucama, North Carolina for 100 laps here at the Southern National Motorsports Park, one of the tracks that are free here on the iRacing.com platform where all of the rookie oval drivers cut their teeth at. And with that being said, this is a track that has made it onto the ASRC Oval Series schedule for every single season for the past, entirety that the ASRC Oval Series has been around, so almost 3 years now. And I'll tell you what, race fans, it is quite the who's who of the greats here in the ASRC Oval Series who have taken home wins at this track. Jake Johansson, Connor Wagner, Charles Cruz, Steven Rex, Benjamin Harsh, Jason Gardner, Brian Sabelski, Tyler McRae have all taken home wins here at this 0.4 mile or 0.64 kilometer speedway. And I'll tell you what, tonight, race fans, is bound to be one heck of a race. Currently, 10 drivers registered for tonight's event. And our two championship leaders, the two drivers that have gotten wins so far this season, both unable to attend tonight. So there's a whole lot of potential here for drivers that have not managed to take home wins so far to shake things up in the championship standings. But for right now, drivers are already making their way on down to the starting grid, so how about we take a look down there and see what these drivers will be lining up with here tonight. Starting out on the pole here tonight, that is going to be the 10 of Mr. Steven Rex, the only Droppin' Bombs racing driver that was able to attend here this evening, and the driver who took home the win here back in season number 4 in the Street Stock. Starting at his outside, that is the rookie driver Christopher Bryan in the 00 with his best qualifying effort so far this season, starting outside in the front row. Third place can go back to that 38 VF Motorsports of Brandon Feeney, who is coming here off the coattails of his best ever finish in the league last week at the Langley Speedway. He's going to be starting off in position number 3. Fourth place can go back to one half of the SM Racing team. That's going to be the 15 of Mr. Garrett Streets. Back in the 5th position, that is going to be 4-time league champion Mr. Brian Sabelski, running for McConey Setup Shop. 6th place, going to be league admin Mr. Jason Gardner back in that number 5 machine, who is another driver that has taken home a win at this speedway. He took it home back in season number 6 in the SK Modified, quite a different car from these late model stocks, but a winner nonetheless here at this speedway. 7th place can go back to the 78 of Mr. Derek Murphy in that Angry Larry entry, with Nico Morelli in the 14 back in position number 8. 9th place can go back to that 74 of Jeremy Morrow, the other half of our title sponsor, SM Racing, with a rookie driver coming in here tonight, Mr. John Solder, going to be coming back in position number 10 in that number 93 Kokomo entry. So 10 cars making the call to the field here this evening. 100 laps is the distance. It is anyone's game here tonight. Green flag up in the air. Steven Rex getting a really great run down into turn number 1, but it is side by side all throughout the field behind him. No one is going to be playing nice here early, and a little bit of contact there between Feeney and Brian as Feeney muscles his way up to the front. Feeney is going to get a little bit of room to play with now, but they're still 2 by 2 behind them. Brian Sabelski now trying to get around that 00, and they're going to make contact. Cars scattering everywhere. We keep it rolling though. Christopher Bryan keeps it pointed in the right direction. Caution flag not going to wave here this evening, and that is going to bump him all the way back to the 9th position from starting up at the very front of this thing. And it looks like there is some heavy left front damage on that 00 machine. It looks like it's still handling okay, but whether or not that's going to last remains to be seen as they make a little bit of contact with that 78 of Derek Murphy in the Angry Larry entry. So just like that, a bit of a chaotic start to this race. And Southern National is a speedway that is known to have maybe a little bit more beaten and banging than some of the other speedways that we visit here on the iRacing.com platform, coming in at only 0.4 miles in length, so one of the shorter tracks on the schedule. But despite that, it has some relatively high banking for a short track, and that means higher average speeds on a shorter than average track. Nico Morelli is going to file on back to the 7th position after getting passed by Jeremy Morrow. Morrow started back in 9th place, so he is on quite a tear here this evening, making ground back up to try and catch up to his teammate of Garrett Streets, who is actually in the position up in front of him in the 5th spot. He does have a bit of ground he needs to make up before he can really get up there and battle with his teammate. But further up in the field, Brandon Feeney, Brian Sabelski battling it out. Feeney stuck up on the high side there. He's going to hold on to it, though. He is going to keep pushing in that Feeney call 38. But it looks like Sabelski just has a little bit too much of an advantage down on the inside here. Not going to have a run he needs to be able to keep up with that McConey setup shop 38. Or 85, excuse me. But as they get themselves sorted out, now Mr. Steven Rex, the driver for Dropping Bombs Racing out of Channahon, Illinois, has built up almost a 2.5 second lead over the rest of the field here this evening, carrying on in the footsteps of his teammates Tyler McRae and Travis Sukup, both of which were unable to attend here this evening. Tyler McRae leads the championship standings with 4 wins to his name, including last week at the Langley Speedway. Then Travis Sukup with 1 win, back in 2nd in the championship standings. Steven Rex, though, is all the way back in 8th in the championship right now. So taking home a win here this evening could be a very big deal for the driver of that number 10 machine. But still, only 14 laps in the books when we cross the line this time by. We still have plenty of racing left to go here this evening. So really, it's way too early to be making a call on what the championship might look like after tonight's event. A little bit further back, Garrett Streets is starting to put down the pressure on Jason Gardner in that ASRC white and orange number 5. Not the normal number we normally see him run out here this season, but it seems like there might have been a little bit of miscommunication on the registry sheet. So John Sluter, the rookie driver, making his debut start here with the league in the Kokomo entry, is going to be running under the number 93 banner here this evening. Currently being scored back into the 10th position, but he is right behind these 2 drivers battling it out for 8th. That's going to be Derek Murphy down on the low line. Nico Morelli up high. Murphy's going to make the pass without much trouble. Is Sluter going to be able to make the pass as well? Yes, he is. That's going to filter Morelli back to the final position here on the speedway. But still plenty of time left to try and make that ground back. And of course, there is more than likely going to end up being a pit stop at some point here this evening. Further up in the field, Jason Gardner still getting pressure put on him by that 15 of Garrett Streets. Streets is not going to be making that number 5 entry's life very easy here this evening. Streets has picked up wins here in the ASRC Oval Series, not any so far this season. They took him a win back in North Wilkesboro last season. Looking to try and get that 15 machine back up on the time and scoring sheets. But I don't believe he has even managed to take home a podium here this season. And after having some really, really solid runs last season in that number 15 machine, I'd imagine he's ready to get back up there on the podium and take home, if nothing else, a little bit of bragging rights to his name. But for right now, running inside the top 5, looking to see if he can't close that gap on Jason Gardner. And still behind him, that 74 of Jeremy Morrow, the other half of the SM Racing team, is right behind him. He is closing the gap. And right there as well, that's Christopher Bryan, the driver that we saw have that incident very early on back in lap number 1 pretty much, going down into turns 3 and 4. Ended all the way back up at the back of the field, but slowly but surely climbing his way back up there. Sure enough though, there it is. Garrett Street's going to take the opportunity to make the pass on Jason Gardner. Will Jeremy Morrow be able to close the gap fast enough to capitalize on his teammate's success? He might just. Jason Gardner still up there on that high line. But sure enough, Jason's clear now, so I don't think he's going to be able to make it happen. Not quite, but that is going to be enough to slow them both down. Now Morrow is very much actually here in this battle between these drivers, all of them battling it out for 4th. Jason Gardner, league admin, stuck in a sandwich between the two drivers that are currently sponsoring the ASRC Oval Series. In a different world, maybe there would be a little bit of politics involved between these drivers, but here in the ASRC Oval Series, everyone is just here to have a good time on a Monday night. And I'll tell you what, we have seen some great racing here this season. These brand new late model stocks here on the iRacing.com platform have put on some really solid performances, and it's no doubt not disappointing here tonight as Garrett Streets is going to make the pass on Brandon Feeney. Feeney hopped hard into the outside wall there. They are battling it out for 3rd, and sure enough, Garrett Street's going to get the run off the corner. Is Feeney going to be able to hold on that outside line? Believe it or not, he actually is making that outside line work just a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough to hang on. Sure enough, just like that, Garrett Streets is going to clear Brandon Feeney, and now Garrett Streets is inside our top 3 here this evening. And that little bit of battle has bunched the rest of the field up. Jason Gardner's there, Jeremy Morrow's there, Christopher Bryant is there, Derek Murphy's there as well at the tail end of this little pack here. And hell, even John Sluter's here as well. Just like that, we have completely bunched up this field, and many drivers going 2 by 2 here. Derek Murphy tried to peek down to the low side of Christopher Bryant. At the same time, Jason Gardner tried to make a spot back on Jeremy Morrow. Not quite going to make it work though. And Christopher Bryant, he's drifted up high again, coming out of turns 3 and 4. That might just open the door for Murphy to look down there. Not quite here tonight in that 78 machine. But all it takes is one little mistake, and some of these drivers might just get freight trained a little bit here this evening. Everyone from 4th on back to 9th is under a blanket of roughly 0.2 of a second between all of them. More or less all nose to tail here this evening. And at a track that is as small and as fast as this one is, it really just takes one little slip up, and it's going to be really difficult to recover here tonight. 40 laps in the books though, 60 left to go around the Southern National Motorsports Park up here in Lucama, North Carolina. Drivers should have to make a pit stop at some point during tonight's event. They don't believe that they're going to have the fuel to make it to the end unless they really manage to save it. And I don't think anyone's quite going to be able to with how they're pushing here this evening. There's Derek Murphy again, trying to look for an opening to get around Christopher Bryant here. Is Brandon Feeney again up into the outside wall. That's going to allow Jeremy Morrow to get around him. Derek Murphy is actually going to see if he can't make the high line work up here in that 78 machine. So far this race not quite working out for these drivers, but he's trying it, and it's not necessarily not working. Like, he's not losing positions to John Sluter just behind him, but it's not necessarily working super well here either. And now the field's kind of broken into two separate packs here as we see Morrow, Feeney, and Gardner having pretty much a mirror match of the battle between Ryan, Murphy, and Sluter just behind them. And look who it is just behind them as well. Nico Morelli had started to catch back up to the field and get involved in these battles. And even more, just look behind them. There's our race leader of Stephen Rex, who now has a 5-second lead over the rest of the field and is getting ready to encounter lap traffic. And not just any lap traffic, but lap traffic that is all throwing some crazy battles at each other right now. Rex is not going to have an easy time navigating through this. A little bit of a scrape against the outside wall is going to cause Derek Murphy to pull back just a little bit. Another scrape against the outside wall is going to allow Nico Morelli to get around him without too much difficulty there. That's going to filter Murphy back to the last spot here on the speedway. But as we head around the speedway one more time, going to be putting us halfway in the books. And that is where we're going to start to see drivers have to think about fueling here this evening, because we do have limits placed on the amount of fuel these late model stocks are allowed to carry. Now again, with this being one of the shorter and faster tracks on the schedule, if there were any track on our schedule here this season, oh, and a little bit of contact there, and that's going to be the 93 round caution flag out on the speedway for Christopher Bryan and John Sluter. I'll tell you what, race fans, I think these two late model stock drivers just made the pit strategy call a whole lot easier here this evening. Let's see if we can't take a look back and see what all just went down to bring out this yellow as Christopher Bryan tries to get that late model pointed back around. With how much difficulty he's having steering here, I think he might have a broken suspension on that 00. Sure enough, he's going to pull it on down to pit lane, but he is having a hard time getting that car to steer. Let's take a look back here, see what all went down between Christopher Bryan in the 00 and John Sluter in that number 93. Heading down the front stretch here, Bryan comes down a little bit, Sluter drifts up, and just a little bit of a nudge, and Nico Morelli could not get himself stopped in time, and little bit of an accordion there here, race fans. Let's take another look back at that. Christopher Bryan, John Sluter. Sluter drifts up just a little bit, and not a whole lot either of these drivers could do from there with Nico Morelli just behind him. Let's take a look back. Let's ride on board with Nico Morelli and see what all he saw going into that incident. They both get loose. He tries to slow it down, but just not really enough time to react there. So that is going to bring out the first caution of the evening here on the speedway, and sure enough, all 10 drivers came down pit lane under this caution. Race control still getting the field sorted out here, but it is looking like Brian Sabelski is being scored as our race leader. Race control still trying to get this timing and scoring board sorted out here, but it does look like Sabelski is going to be scored as the race leader here. Everyone came down to pit lane under this caution. Some pretty varying pit times though. Sabelski was down there for 24 seconds, Gardner 35, Bryan 48. Brandon Feeney, who was not involved in that incident, was down on pit lane for 1 minute and 16 seconds. But everyone was down there for a minimum of 20 sections, with the exception of Nico Morelli, who was only down there for about 13. So Morelli might have just taken fuel, while the whole rest of the field absolutely took tires here this evening. And actually, as we get things sorted out here, it looks like Derek Murphy also had a short stop here this evening in that 78 machine. He was only down there for 19 seconds, so Murphy might be on a fuel-only strategy as well. But lights off on the iRacing.com pace truck, and it looks like we are going green with a single file restart here. See, green flag back up in the air, and there are late models picking every which line they can down there. Steven Rex, who was the leader of this race up until this point, currently being scored back into the 5th position. Christopher Bryan, Garrett Streets battling out side by side for the 3rd position. They make contact. Everyone keeping it pointed in the right direction this time around. They make contact again. Christopher Bryan again being bumped out of the way here. But I'm impressed they got that 00 back out on the speedway, because it looked like he had some pretty heavy steering damage. But he came down pit lane. He was down there on pit lane for about a minute, and now he's got it rolling again, and he is finding himself up inside the top 5 here this evening. A little bit further back, side by side, as Nico Morelli gets around that 38 Brandon Feeney, and Derek Murphy is closing the gap on that 38 machine as well. Feeney, another one of those drivers who probably not very happy with that yellow flag coming out, because he was running up inside the top 3, and now he's finding himself back in 7th. And Murphy is going to be putting the pressure on him here in just a second. That might even risk bumping him back down to 8th. But Brian Sabelski, Jason Gardner, and Garrett Streets going to be scored as your new top 3 here this evening. But Steven Rex, he is ready to throw whatever punches he needs to do to get back up in the front of this thing. He's led every lap so far. He led up to lap 53 when that caution came out, so he will be getting the bonus points for leading the most laps of the race. But I would imagine the driver, that number 10, he wants to take home a win pretty dang badly, so he can say that every driver for Dropping Bombs Racing Team that competes here in the ASRC Oval Series will have taken home a win in a single season. Just in front of them, Garrett Streets, Jason Gardner battling it out for 2nd place here. Both of them allowing Brian Sabelski to build up a little bit of a lead here. But with less than 40 laps left to go, there's not really a whole lot of time left to negotiate and play nice with each other right now. Both of them going to clear that number 5 of Jason Gardner, though. Going to single file out, but will it stay single filed out for very long? That is going to be the big question here, as we're 2 by 2 back further in the pack. Christopher Bryan still holding on to the 5th position in that damaged late model, as Brandon Feeney and Nico Borelli side by side. Jeremy Morrow, Derek Murphy side by side back here as well. Murphy's going to fall back in that 78, going to single file it by, see if he can't join the freight train to get around these late models stuck up on the high side. And now everyone starting to play a little bit nicer with each other, but Brandon Feeney, he's got the nose to the back of that 00. He says, "You got a damaged late model, buddy. You're a little bit off the pace. Please get out of my way." And he darn near spun himself trying to do that, really loose coming out of turn number 4 there. That's going to allow Bryan to get a little bit of breathing room here, but is it breathing room that is going to last? Looks like the verdict is no. Feeney is right there yet again. He's going to try and go down the low side. Not quite. Not quite the room he needed to make it happen here, but he is really eager to get around that 00 here, and I think Christopher Bryan at this point is just holding on for dear life in that damaged late model. I'm taking a quick look through my notes here, and it does look like this would be Christopher Bryan's first top 5 finish here with the league if he manages to hold on to this position in these final 30 laps, but there is a whole gaggle of late models right behind him that want him to get the heck out of the way. Brandon Feeney is going to try and see if he can't make the high line work to get around that 00, and a couple of drivers are actually going to follow him. That's Nico Morelli up there that was thinking about the high side for just a moment. And Derek Murphy was over there as well, but he's going to back out of that. He's going to drop back down low. But everyone they're just trying to figure something out here to get around that damaged late model, but he still got it pointed in the right direction. He still has all 4 tires on it. That's basically all you need to still be able to compete. It actually looked like that 00 might have bottomed out a little bit coming through the corner there, though. We saw sparks coming out the back, and we are going to push it 3 wide here. You know what? Why not? Let's go 3 wide to get around Christopher Bryan here. Brandon Feeney's going to get the lead off of that one in this little battle. Jeremy Morrow is going to get around as well. Will Derek Murphy and Nico Morelli try the same stunt? They're not going to do it that time by because they do have to close the gap just a little bit to get around that 00. 25 laps left to go as our race leader crosses the line, though. And Sabelski, he's built up a full second lead here. But Garrett Street, Steven Rex still battling it out for second and third here this evening. 24 laps left to go, and it looks like Brandon Feeney might have gone around. No, he did not. He's still got it pointed in the right direction, but there's the caution. Christopher Bryan around once again, and it looks like Derek Murphy was the driver he got involved with there. It was a good run for that 00, but something did not quite work out there. Let's see if we can't take a look back here and see what all brought out that second caution. Definitely Christopher Bryan. And I don't like this. We just took a look back to the replay here. We're barely pushing it 4 wide. Nico Morelli back there in the back is already way more sideways than he should be. That's not how you enter turns 3 and 4. Let's just go ahead and play and try and figure out what all went down there. We might actually have to rewind this further. But Christopher Bryan just came on up into that 78. Maybe didn't know he was there, but not a whole lot that Murphy could have done in that situation. Let's jump back here. Let's take a couple little bits of look back here. We're gonna rewind the footage a little bit because we have the technology to do that. Let's try and figure out what all went down here. And it looks like it started further up the front. Brandon Feeney and Jeremy Morrow get in together, and everyone kind of swerves to try and avoid it. And that just gets everyone a little bit haywire coming through turns 3 and 4. And Christopher Bryan just came up, did not realize that Derek Murphy was there. Let's take a ride on board with the driver of the number 78, see what he saw coming through that corner. Just not a whole lot that Derek Murphy could have done there. So that is going to bring out the second caution flag of the evening as we get it rolling one more time here. And there is a slow car down on the apron. That's the 74 of Jeremy Morrow. That looks like he just came out of pit lane, but we are all sorts of bunched up battling for the lead on this restart. Brian Zabelski's holding on to the front. Steven Rex just behind Garrett Streets. Brandon Feeney's not on the lead lap here in this battle in that number 38. He's just kind of stuck in the middle here. Garrett Streets, Jason Gardner, 3rd and 4th. So that 38 in the middle of all this is not on the lead lap. He's just kind of driving to survive at this point. He's going to go up high as that allows Garrett Streets to get down below him. Now Streets can try and battle for the lead of this race, as Jeremy Morrow takes the jump down to pit lane. So that might be an end to Morrow's evening just a little bit here. Drivers all still working their way around Brandon Feeney. Feeney said, you know what, I'm a lap down. No reason to be battling with these drivers, so he is going to stick it up high. And just behind him, that is the 00 of Christopher Bryan, who is still on the lead lap in that pretty heavily damaged number 00 entry. Just trying to hold on here and do whatever you can for these last 15 laps here this evening. Brian Zabelski still holding on to lead this race. 4-time champion here in the ASRC Oval Series, and has not managed to take home a win so far this season. So tonight could be the night that he finally turns his luck around. And actually, looking back, he didn't take home a win at all last season either. So Sabelski has been in a little bit of a drought here, but tonight he could finally break that almost 6-month-long winless streak here in the ASRC Oval Series. 13 laps left to go for the Makoni setup driver. And a little bit further behind, Nico Morelli putting the pressure down on Jason Gardner. Morelli's looking to try and see if he can't start punching his way into the podium. He's got to get around Gardner first, and Gardner has a 2-second gap between himself and Garrett Streets up in third, so not quite going to be an easy task, especially with only 11 laps left to go as our leader crosses the line. Sure enough, Sabelski, Rex, and Streets, your top 3 drivers, all separated out from the rest of the field. Let's actually zoom out the camera here so you can get a decent idea. That's a good probably 8 or 9 car lengths between Garrett Streets in third and any of the drivers in the rest of the field. So with 9 laps left to go, everyone's pretty much guaranteed to be good to go on fuel, since they all made their pit stops under that first caution. Jeremy Morrow, the only driver that is no longer on the speedway. And it looks like that might be the end of the evening for Jeremy Morrow. He's been down there for nearly 3 minutes now. If he's got that much damage on that late model stock, I don't think he's going to be able to bring it back out. Brandon Feeney, the only driver that is currently on the speedway but not on the lead lap. But closest battle on the speedway is the battle for the lead here as Steven Rex tries to figure something out to get around Brian Sabelski. Big high five up in the air as they come out of turn number 4. 5 laps left to go here at the Southern National Motorsports Park. 5 laps left to go to etch a new name in the record book. Brian Sabelski and Steven Rex both have won at this track prior here in the series, but both of them did it in different cars. Steven Rex did it in the street stock. Brian Sabelski did it in the SK Modified. Garrett Streets is the only driver in the top 3 that is not taking home a win here. But Brian Sabelski, he is holding on to it here tonight, and with 2 laps left to go, just a couple of more corners for the Makoni setup shop number 85, but Steven Rex is not out of this one. White flag up in the air one more time around the Southern National Motorsports Park before we crown a new winner for Season 10 of the ASRC Oval Series. Rex is going to try and send it the best he can through turns 3 and 4, but just not quite enough. Brian Sabelski going to take home the win here in Lucama, North Carolina. What a race it has been here this evening. Now, I'll tell you what, race fans, Southern National never quite turns out to be what we have on our bingo cards here in this league, but despite it all, Brian Sabelski is going to get done here this evening. Will we get a burnout from that number 85? We'll give him just a minute to figure it out. He's thinking about it. He's turned the wheel. He's revved the engine. There we go. Brian Sabelski going to be breaking a nearly 6-month-long winless streak here in the ASRC Oval Series. And with Travis Sukup and Tyler McRae unable to attend tonight's event, that should bump Sabelski up to second in the championship standings. Of course, we will have to see in the next couple of races in the season how our 4 drop weeks all filter into things. But as it stands right now, that should move the driver that Makoni Setup Shop entry into the second position in the championship standings. But as drivers pull it on down to pit lane and get themselves all packed up here for this evening, we will be back in just a moment, race fans, with interviews with your top 3 finishers here tonight. Don't go anywhere. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Southern National Motorsports Park. Just now got round number 6 of season 10 of the ASRC Oval Series, presented by SM Racing, in the books here this evening. And Brian Sabelski breaking an almost 5 or 6 month long winless streak here in the league. You finally got it done once again. You're back up in the championship contending here tonight. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done this evening?
Feeling great. I do want to say I feel a little bad. I did accidentally, I think, clean out Christopher there on like lap 2. I took a look back at the replay, and he had a position more than I did. I probably should have backed off a little bit more. I was just trying to be really aggressive. So, Christopher, if you are watching this, I am sorry about that, bud. I did not mean to do that. But yeah, it feels good. It feels good to finally have a win under my belt. It's a little bit of a bummer that Tyler and Travis here this week. I hope they're doing well. We miss them, but yeah, it's nice to have that streak broken. Put the 85 back on P1.
Yeah. And there were a couple other drivers. Steven Rex led the most laps here this race. Brandon Feeney was battling up there at the front for a decent chunk of this race too. Did you have any worries that things might have not played out in your favor coming through this race?
Yes. I'm not going to lie. I had some doubts there. I knew I was getting away from them before that second caution came out. The first one came out just as I was planning to go into the pit, so it didn't really affect my strategy. Other than I took 4 tires instead of 2. But yeah, that second one bunched everyone back up after I pulled about the second gap, and I was just like, oh, this is not what I wanted. I wanted to go green the rest of the way since I was out front. But I did somehow held Steven off. I know I could tell he was driving really hard on entry to try and get to my bumper, so he could probably make the move on the next set of corners. So I was focusing on a lot on corner mid to exit to try and get the drive off of, because I knew he'd be slowing the car getting in, and that's where I could make my time up.
Well, you definitely managed to make it work here for you tonight. And next week, heading on over to a track that we have not been to in a little while. We are heading on over to Martinsville. How you feeling going on over to the pay-per-click next week?
I hope it's better than officials. I hope it's better than officials with this league. I would assume so. There's a bunch of good drivers in this league, and they tend to run a lot cleaner than that. But officials, every time I've gone there in an official race, it's been just an absolute mess. I've seen Cup Series drivers wreck the wrong people there, retaliating, and then Alt F4. I've seen all kinds of weird stuff there. I got last time we were there like 2 weeks ago in C-Fix, and I got destroyed by somebody who was trying to drive around the wreck just as the caution was coming out. So it was like, he was fine. He was fine. I had like 8 minutes of damage. That's just Martinsville things. So I'm hoping next week it's a good race and clean race, and that it's not just a follow the leader fest, but also not a caution fest.
Well, you never know. You do have a point that we do have some really solid drivers here in the league, but even here in the league, Martinsville has had some questionable moments, and it does still hold the record for the most drivers that ever attended an ASRC Oval race back with 22 entries. I don't quite think that's going to happen here this season, but you never know what's going to happen heading into that track.
I don't want to get run over. Just don't let me get run over. I'm tired of being run over at Martinsville, just in any race. So, hopefully next week. Hopefully next week it'll be all right.
Well, I'll let you go ahead and start getting ready to take on quite a difficult speedway and go and celebrate your first win in a season and a half. Well, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who do you want to thank for getting you here in Victory Lane?
Well, I think we gotta thank the big old sponsor on the hood there, Maconi Setup Shop, the official setup shop of the NASCAR everything. Always good to be running with them. Obviously, thank the folks at Take This, Pause Your Game, charities, the charities I work with. They do a great job. We're doing a fundraiser for a shelter in Illinois right now for Pause Your Game this week. So if you're interested in that, check it out. I've got the fundraiser info on my Twitch page. Speaking of which, thank you everybody for hanging out here on the old Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Neon Tiger. As always, thanks to ASRC for putting on the league, Garrett and Jeremy, and SM Racing for the sponsorship, Jason for doing all the admin work. Yeah, if you're interested in running late model stocks, this is a good league to check out. Please do hop on over. We're always happy to have new folks.
Good deal. Well, congratulations again on the win, and I look forward to seeing you at Martinsville next week.
Thank you.
And Mr. Steven Rex, that finished off in position number 2, does not particularly enjoy doing interviews, so unfortunately we're not going to be hearing from him here this evening. But coming back in position number 3, another driver that has been in a little bit of a drought for the past season or so, managing to come home on the podium here tonight. Garrett, it's been a little while. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here tonight?
Feels pretty good. I've had some struggles switching over to the late model stock. I really enjoyed the car, but have not been able to find any speed yet. I feel like that's starting to change, starting to learn how to drive the car a little bit better. So it feels good to be rewarded with third place tonight.
Yeah, you definitely made it happen here this evening, especially from starting a couple of spots back behind that. I feel like you've pretty much filled every spot in this field at some point here this evening, but you managed to make it work out for you. Do you reckon Or what do you might have had to have done different to have potentially gotten around Steven Rex, or maybe even taken home a win here tonight?
Uh, I mean, it's just hard racing. I think we got pushed back a little bit there at the beginning with contact that Brian had up ahead, just racing deal, you know. But that kind of pushed us back a little bit and had to pass a few cars to get back to where we would have been otherwise. So I think had that things have gone different there, we may have had an opportunity to fight for the win. But again, we're satisfied with how this turned out, and third place is a lot better than we've done so far this season.
Yeah, coming into tonight's event, you are scored 6th in the championship standings, and you are only 2 points behind Nico Morelli. So, unless something happens with the incident point bonuses here tonight, that should bump you into 5th in the championship standings heading into next week. And of course, I mentioned that with Brian. Martinsville Speedway, a track that seems to have maybe a little bit of a dark curse put on it. How you feeling heading there next week for the first time in, I believe, a couple of seasons here with the league?
I'm looking forward to it. I like Martinsville a lot. I seem to have some success there across different cars. So I look forward to having it. Had one get away from me a couple seasons ago in the old late model. So it'd be really nice to make up for that one.
Good deal. Well, of course, congratulations on getting a podium here tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week in Martinsville. But before you head out, the microphone's all yours. Who do you want to thank for getting you up here tonight?
I want to thank ASRC for having the league, Jason for putting it all together. Thank you, Aiden, for broadcasting. Uh, Thanks to everyone for having SM Racing Products come on board. Jeremy and I are proud of the work we've done there and happy to be a part of the series we have tonight. So yeah, thank you all very much, everyone out there watching. Want to say hi to Morgan back home. Yeah, thank you, Aiden.
Good deal. Well, congratulations on getting a podium here this evening. And I look forward to seeing you at Martinsville next week.
All right, we'll see you then. Thanks, Aiden.
So you heard it here first, race fans. Interviews with two of your top three finishers, at least. Brian Zabelski bringing it on home in the first position for the first time in a long while. Garrett Street's getting his first podium in a little while as well. Before we sign out for the evening, though, got to take a look down at our unofficial race results. They might as well be official. I don't think we're going to be getting any penalties handed out. We haven't issued penalties in almost a year now. So it's going to be Brian Zabelski, Steven Rex, Garrett Streets, your top three finishers here this evening. Jason Gardner bringing it home, position number 4. Nico Morelli rounding out the top 5. 6, can you go back to that rookie driver making his debut start, and that is going to be John Sluter. Christopher Bryan in the 00, finishing back in position number 7. Derek Murphy bringing it home, position number 8, and that number 78. 9th, going to go back to that 38 of Mr. Brandon Feeney, with Jeremy Morrow rounding out the field here this evening. So next week, of course, Martinsville Speedway, the paperclip. It's a very long, very narrow oval that is bound to be a little bit unlike anything we have thrown these late model drivers in a little while. Ryan Spelsky, you heard him talk about it, is a track that has a bit of a difficult reputation here on the iRacing.com platform just because it is such a difficult speedway in general, but I think it is bound to put on some very exciting racing. So from everyone here at the ASRC Oval Series, from everyone at SM Racing Products, and of course from myself up here in the broadcasting booth, thank you all so much for tuning in here this evening. And we look forward to seeing you next week at the Martinsville Speedway. Same day, same time, Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. Session opens at 9 p.m. Eastern. And if anyone's looking to do some late model racing, the league is open for anyone to join. Just head on over to www.asrcracing.com or look up the league on the iRacing League directory. The only requirement to join is to be a clean and respectful driver. But for now, that's all we've got here this evening. Thank you all for coming out, and we look forward to seeing you next week at Martinsville. Have a good evening, race fans.